Hey everyone, Shane here. Today we're going to learn about leadership perspectives from Chapter 11 of Organizational Behavior. Strap yourselves in because this is a pretty hefty chapter, but I tried my best to condense it so it doesn't seem as long as the actual readings are, hopefully. Okay, so what is leadership? There are probably hundreds of different definitions you can probably come up with what leadership means, but the book defines leadership as a process of providing general direction from a position of influence to individuals or groups toward the successful attainment of goals. Usually this is through behaviour emergence, which is when someone rises through the ranks naturally and becomes the de facto leader of a group that needs, which is in desperate need of a leader. Now there is formal and informal leadership. Formal leadership is when a leader is officially chosen to run an organization, such as voting for your local mayor or president, or a CEO being appointed by the board of directors in an organization. They come with all the bells and whistles, the benefits, the check bonuses, all that jazz. While informal leadership is when a leader is not officially recognized as the leader in an organization, but is seen by their peers as ones. Kind of like how in jury duty, like usually out of 12 jurors, one of them becomes the official leader and keeps everything on track, but they don't get any benefits, they don't get any privileges. They just are seen as a leader because from the others because they get things done and no one else is stepping up. Now, leaders aren't to be confused with managers, though they're similar in a couple of ways. They're completely different roles. I kind of liken managers to focus on order and equilibrium within the organization, while leaders are more driven and motive to ascend to something greater. Like managers focus on short terms. They want to train and develop the employees they already have. They want the organization to have a smooth operation and be stable, while leaders are visionaries. They are grandiose. They want to inspire more, do more. They see the bigger picture. They have long-term goals they want to accomplish. They don't want to stay small forever. They're also like seen as the leaders are seen as role models, like someone who like say made an invention when they were 16 and made an organization a livelihood out of it. It's probably going to be seen more as a role model than Jeff from management. They both have to work with others, obviously, and focus on goal setting and influence, but one favors it more than the other. Next, there's about 4 different types of leadership. The first one is direct leaders, who are kind of like by the book type of people. They make sure the rules are followed, set performance standards, implement guidelines, and provide expectations. They focus on like an autocratic style, where a leadership style is based more on decision making without the suggestion of others. They're kind of like I said before, they follow a set of rules by the book. They're straight. They don't like make exceptions for anything. Next are the visionary leaders, which, as their name suggests, focus on a singular vision that they want to motivate all their followers to follow. They usually rely on their charm or charisma to gain support, and they expect commitment and loyalty from their followers to accomplish their vision. They're like mission oriented, like they have a singular goal that they all aspire to. Next is transactional leaders. They set goals for followers and motivate with rewards. They liken themselves to compliance, the behaviors of targets of influence who agree readily to carry out the requests of the leader. And then there's empowering leaders. They cultivate their followers' skills, encourage followers to take pride and ownership in their work, and then lead others to lead themselves. It also goes by the term super leadership, which is basically just having people lead, like it's to just lead others to lead themselves. Like it's kind of offhands, but it kind of like gives power to the people type of deal. Next are leadership theories, which include trait theory, behavior theory, participative leadership, contingency theories, and situational leadership, and all the different like styles, models, and theories that included for each one. There's a little graph that kind of summarizes like each one to its basic core. Trait leadership explores the relationships between the leader's characteristics and personal qualities and how their traits make them different from non-leaders. It's kind of broken into this 7 core traits that most people associate with great leaders, such as Alexander the Great, Napoleon, people like that. These people are generally seen to have like drive, like motivation to carry out their plans and desires, their natural desire to lead, how they get along with others, self-confidence, they have high self-esteem, they know they're very confident in their ability to lead others. Their cognitive ability, how well they can think, how they process information, how to come up with the best solutions, the knowledge of their domain. They know the field that they are in, like their audience, their followers, their environment, their technology. They know what to do and how to best use what they have. But they're also open to new experiences. Like they're not one trick pony. They have to, if they're to adapt and survive, they have to be open to new ideas and solutions, think outside the box. And of course, they have to be kind of extroversion, like they have to be social, they have to work with others. Leaders can't be like social outcasts generally, like they have to get along with others and be able to convince others to work with them. Now, behavior leadership is the general idea that there are beliefs or specific behaviors that can distinguish leaders from non-leaders, and that leaders can generally be made rather than be born. 2 studies, one from Ohio State and another from the University of Michigan, explored the behaviors and the type of behaviors that leaders express behavior-wise. The first one from Ohio State showed that initiating structure, a behavior leadership style that demonstrated that leaders define roles of employees, set clear guidelines and procedures, and establish distinct patterns or organizational and communication. They also have consideration, a behavior leadership style which demonstrates that leaders can develop mutual trust and respect and actively build an interpersonal relationship with their followers. The University of Michigan's study came up with job-centered leadership styles, which is a behavior leadership style that emphasizes employee tasks and methods used to accomplish them. An employee-centered leadership style, which is a behavioral leadership style that emphasizes the personal needs of employees in the development of interpersonal relationships. They're kind of similar. The 2 studies are kind of similar, but more specific in some areas. Working off the Ohio State study, researchers Albert R. Blake and Jane S. Mouton created the leadership grid, which measures concern from a 1 to 9 scale, 9 being the most concerned and 1 being the least concerned. It's divided up in about 5 sections. First one being country club, which is when leaders are more concerned with the well-being and happiness of their employees than their bottom dollar in the production of their organization. Think of like Costco's and how they have a lot of employee benefits and employees love working there. And despite the organization not making as much money as they could. Next is the impoverished leaders, which is leaders who have very little concern for production or for the people, which means they're generally ineffective for the most part. They're kind of just, they don't care. They're off hands. They don't really care how much they're making or whether the people are happy. Maybe kind of liking it to sweatshops and how there's really no concern for really anything. Products are thrown out there are in poor shape and people are being paid very, very poorly. Then there's authority and obedience, which is also referred to as produce or perish, which is basically you have to make 30 hats in an hour or I'm going to cut your paycheck for today in half. It's basically you have more concern for production than you do the people that work for you. Then lastly, there's a team leader, which rates production needs and the people's needs equally highly. Like they're very concerned, they're opposite of impoverished. They're very concerned about production, but they're also very concerned about how their employees are treated. Next is the contingency leadership perspective by Fred E. Fiedler, which basically is the effectiveness of a leader is related to how their own traits and behaviors interact with the demands of situational factors, or how they interact with their least favorite employee, whether it's a pleasurable or unpleasurable experience. Fiedler accomplished this task by identifying the different types of leadership styles by using the least preferred co-worker questionnaire, which looks into whether a person is task or relationship oriented. Basically, whether they like to focus on relationships with their employees, they have a good relationship with everything, they're positive, or they kind of just ignore everyone. They don't like interacting with certain co-workers, and they rather focus at the task in hand. And this would be a graph of the least preferred coworker scale. Generally speaking, those who score high tend to show their least favorite coworker in a more positive light, while those who score low are the opposite and prefer to focus on work rather than deal with the people they don't like. Fiedler goes a step further in working off his previous model by using the Fiedler's contingency model, which is broken up into leader-member relations, task structure, and position of power. Leader-member relations describe the degree of confidence, trust, and respect that exists between subordinates and their leaders. Leaders who are generally better at influencing the outcomes in events. Next would be task structure, which is the degree in which a job assignment are defined. Leaders are good at giving out orders with clear and decisive instructions and procedures and what results they want. And then there's position of power, which is degree of level of power a leader possesses or rewards or punishes or promotes and demotes. This can have both positive and negative effect, depends on whether the leader relies more on punishment or rewards. Next is the situational leadership model, which is when leaders generally adapt to the people they lead and the requirements of a task, which was developed by Paul Hersey and Ken Blanc. It's divided up into 4 grids. First one, telling, which is giving clear instructions and guidance. Followers are generally informed. Selling, communicating with followers and selling them an idea or task. Participating, leaders and followers that work together and share in decision making. And delegating, giving most of the responsibilities to followers while keeping an eye on them, more of an offhand approach. And you can see how they differ from direct and supportive in this scale. Next is the house path goal theory, which is leadership effectiveness is the degree to which the leader enhances the performance of followers by guiding them to a defined track toward achieving their goals. This is broken up into 4 parts. First one being instrumental or directive leadership behavior characterized by implementing guidelines, managing expectations, setting defined performance standards, ensuring the individuals follow rules, like we went over before, just by the books type of deal. Next will be supportive leadership, a type of leadership behavior characterized by friendliness and concern for the welfare of others. Next is participative leadership behavior that consists of consulting with followers and considering their input in decision making, kind of like getting the grunts involved and not surrounding yourself by yes men who don't know any better. And lastly is achievement-oriented leadership, which is behavior characterized by setting challenging goals, improving performance, and assisting employee training. Basically, getting your employees on the right track and having them motivated to do better. There are also 2 main situational contingencies that they have to face. such as subordinate characteristics, such as anxiety, inflexibility, perceived ability, locus of control, and close-mindedness, along with task characteristics outside the follower's control, such as team dynamics, authority system, and task structures. Followers will face obstacles when they're going towards their goal. And that's why sometimes leaders have to step in, like if the team is unorganized or they don't know what they're doing, a leader has to set a defined goal for them to do and what instructions they have to follow to get them on the right track. They also have to remove some barriers like funding. If the team needs funding, the leaders might put aside some money for them, or if they need outside help, the leader might hire an expert in the field to help them. Just leaders' goal, or the goal of the leader and the goal of the team is the same, but the leader has to help the team destroy the obstacles that they might face along that goal. Another part of this that kind of goes with this theory is substitutes for leadership model, which is when certain characteristics of a situation can hold back the influence from a leader, like I was just discussing, and neutralization, replacing leadership attributes that do not affect the follower's outcome. Basically just stuff that doesn't need to be involved at all. Next are the contemporary leadership perspectives, which include the leader-member exchange theory, which is basically leaders develop different relationships with different followers. Usually it's divided in in-group exchange and or out-group exchange. Basic in-group exchange is interaction that occurs when leaders and followers develop good working relation based on mutual trust, respect, and a sense of sharing common rates. While out-group exchange is people who are presumed to be incompetent, unmotivated, untrustworthy team members that have low quality relationship with their leaders. Basically, there's a group where it's surrounded by people you trust and like a bubble surrounded by those that you don't trust. Like you have you could end up being a bunch of yes men or people that actually do have the best interest of yours at heart. Next is transformational leadership, which inspires followers to go beyond their self-interest and work for the common good for their organization and share a singular vision. This is broken up into 4 dimensions, one being idolized influence, which is a behavior that gains the admiration, trust, and respect of followers, or charisma. Next is inspirational motivation, promotes commitment to a shared vision of the future. Intellectual stimulation, which encourages the people to view problems from a different perspective and to think about innovative and alternative ways to address them. And individualized consideration, creates mutual respect or trust and genuine concern for the needs and desires of others. Basically, the leader is kind of cozying up to his followers to get them to have the put aside their own self-interest and focus mainly on the leader's goal, the company's goal, the organization's goal, and accomplish that. Next would be charisma leadership, which is leaders using their natural charm, personality, and inspire loyalty from their followers. It kind of works off transformational, but charisma definitely focus more on your personality and whether or not you're someone you want to have a beer with, like someone you would want to follow into battle, that sort of thing. And lastly is the follower-centered leadership perspective, which focuses on first impressions and followers rather than leaders. It focuses more like on fellowships, which are individual capacity to cooperate with leaders. Kind of like Lord of the Rings, where there's a fellowship of the rings, where people working together to accomplish the goal of a leader. And there's also, it kind of goes in tangent with implicit leadership theories, which are hypotheses that explore the extent in which we distinguish leaders and non-leaders based on underlying assumptions, stereotypes, and beliefs. and leadership prototypes, which are behaviors that people associate with leadership. Basically, follower-centered leadership perspective kind of like goes in like how people see leaders or other followers, like what stereotypes, like what characteristics are they masculine, stuff like that. Next are power distributing leadership perspectives. Empowering leadership is using power to inspire followers and motivate them to achieve their goals, which is broken up into leading by example, like doing the work yourself, giving example, like getting down in the trenches and showing the boys what to and all that jazz. The other would be coaching, which was when leaders take active steps to educate and train their employees so they can become more independent. Like leaders don't want to babysit their employees all the time, so they rather teach it to them themselves and make sure they're doing it right. Next was participative decision making, which is empowering leaders encourage employees to make suggestions and express their ideas. Like kind of like how Duntley does his teachings, how he kind of makes suggestions and how he kind of gets us on the right track with our thinking. Informing, which is when leaders keep their employees up to date with company information goals. Like you don't want to, if you change your goals or your the way you do things changes, like policy, like there was an accident and so now there's new safety measures. Like you have to keep up to date and have like strict paperwork giving out and stuff like that, or else like employees are going to make mistakes or get hurt and it's going to be on come back to bite you later. And then they're showing concern, which is basically leaders are actually showing concern for their employees. Like they're asking how they are. If an employee's been down in the dumps for a while, they might come and ask them if they're wrong, if they need a day off, things like that. Then there's shared leadership, which distributes influence among groups and individuals to achieve their organizational or team goals, which is common like in nursing or in the other health fields where like it's best to have a shared influence of power and not have one person calling the shots. And then there's self-leadership, which is people who intentionally influence their thinking behavior to achieve a goal. Basically, you're changing how you think to get things done. Like if you have a deadline that you have to accomplish, you might say like I'm going to put off like going out or having fun, doing like a strict working method. That's broken up into behavior focus, which when a person targets towards increasing their self-awareness and managing their own conduct. Natural reward, where they find pleasure in certain aspects of their roles, leading to enhance sense of confidence, self-discipline applications, like giving yourself little rewards for achieving your goals. And constructive thought pattern strategies focus on modification of certain key mental processes, like changing your way of thinking so you're not like as ignorant or slow when it comes to certain subjects. Next is the value-based leadership perspectives, which include authentic leadership, which is a pattern of leadership behavior based on honest practicality and ethicality. Basically, your boss is like the real deal. Like there's no like, he's not faking it. He does care about you. Like he's not putting up an act. Kind of like how a lot of people think like Mr. Rogers was an act, but whenever he acts, people like he was the same as he was on TV as he was behind the scenes. It's like it's basically just real people. Like there's no like faking or anything of that sort. Next is spiritual leadership, which is based on a style of leadership that motivates followers through works of hope, faith, vision, and strives to create a healthy set of emotions such as forgiveness and gratitude. Basically, it doesn't have to be religious per se, but it kind of like focuses on like a set of doctrines that you follow, how to love each other, things like that. It can also be like family values, like Chick-fil-A's, like they have off on Sunday for religious reasons, and their customer service is usually pretty good because they're taught to like be very welcoming and concerned for employees. Next is servant leadership, which focuses on followers in the community rather than leaders. rather than it kind of builds up from the community that they live in rather than just focusing on leaders. And then there's ethical leadership, which is influencing through values, beliefs, and morals. Kind of works for spiritual, but more of a cultural type thing, where you work off core values from like maybe a region you're in. Like people appreciate opening up in like 6 o'clock in the morning, or giving out free coffee to police officers, stuff like that. That's kind of like value based and has a sort of belief to it. Next is cross-cultural leadership, which is basically just the process of leading through different cultures. This is important because, like, say, like, if your company, your advertising campaign might work in one region of the world, but might not work in another. Like, say, if your organization, if you have like a funny skit with like a cow to promote your product, that might be funny like in the States, but in like India, where cows are seen as holy, they might seem as like very disrespectful. So you might have to change up your tactics. Generally, this cross-cultural leadership is broken up into 6 dimensions. First one being charismatic and value-based, which is a leader's capacity to inspire, motivate, and expect high performance outcomes from others. Next would be team-oriented, which highlights the effectiveness of team building and the implementation of common purpose or goal among team members. Next would be participative, which describes the extent in which managers engage others in implementing decisions. Next would be humane-oriented, the leadership dimension that signifies supportive, considerate, compassionate, and generous leadership that was thought to be only a moderate contribute to outside leadership across all cultures. Autonomous describes the independent and individualistic leadership. And self-protective, which is a leadership dimension that describes the self-interest of the leader in terms of face-saving, safety, security, and generally report to and outstanding leadership. Next is leadership in gender and the inequality and how inequality is caused. Generally, it's caused by like leadership style and expectations. Men and women often be different leadership tactics, like how we went over class previously, how women focus more on having everyone's voice heard or doing roundabout ways of giving out orders, while men are more direct and have a clear leader. Family and career demands, how like women sometimes, if they get pregnant, can go on maternal leave, but in some countries like the US, that's not like a given right. So that could be discriminated against them. Professional networks, women sometimes who are focused on the family might not have time to socialize with other people in their field, unlike men. And general discrimination and stereotypes, such as like masculinity is seen as leadership qualities, like the taller you are, the more handsome you are, the more bulky, aggressive you are, seen more as leadership, while femininity is seen more like passive and more of a follower quality. Some ways you can challenge inequality in the workplace is by eliminating prejudice against female leaders by opening workshops or training to identify stereotypes. Another way is a just evaluation process, which is to evaluate work by the quality of your work rather than how many hours you worked. Adopt open recruitment methods should be more transparent so men do not favor over women. Redress the balance, which would focus less on gender and more on individual abilities. Encourage networking by setting up shops where women can socialize and make contact with people in the industry. Provide management opportunities. Open up family-friendly practices, such maybe take your daughter to work day, having more maternal leave, things like that benefit the family. And also for men to use these family benefits, because that would, when both men and women are using the same benefits, it could be argued more for them to keep these benefits and to expand upon them and to judge everyone evenly. And with that, the chapter is finally complete. Sorry it took so long.